Hello, and welcome back to the Cassidy Car Cave. Well, maybe it's the Cassidy Car Camper. So, a little bit of sneak preview here and some Thanksgiving cheer. I'm in the camper. We have a 1972 Airstream that we use quite a bit, and I fish a lot and do a lot of astronomy. So I'm going to start another channel called Stars and Streams. But this particular video is for just some Thanksgiving happiness. There's a lot to be thankful for. I'm thankful for 126 YouTube subscribers. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's been a nice run the past couple of months. What I thought I would do for Thanksgiving is talk about some of the cars I've owned that have been total turkeys. I'm sure you guys have had some too. A turkey car to me is not necessarily a car that requires a lot of maintenance. You're probably expecting me to throw the CL600 out there as my top choice, given all the massive maintenance I've complained about with that car. It's a beautiful car, and it does require a lot of maintenance, but that's not a turkey to me. I don't necessarily mind a car that requires some maintenance along the way or is, demanding as far as service. That's okay. A turkey to me is a car that's just inherently misengineered. It's got a fatal flaw that you have to spend a ton of time or a ton of money fixing that shouldn't be there. The manufacturer just basically screwed up, and it causes us all a lot of headaches and grief. So, and also a turkey can be just a car that's a piece of junk. Unfortunately, I'm going to get some probably hate for this. I love the look and the aesthetics of Jaguars. I've had several, but they are pieces of junk. I have had no luck with Jaguars. The electro gremlins, the transmission I've had issues with, the engines, head gaskets. It's just every Jaguar I've owned, I've had 3 or 4, have been just junk from the beginning, like falling apart, not reliable whatsoever. And they're just such a headache to own. They're not worth it as much as I love them. They're beautiful cars. That's why I kept buying them. It's because the interiors on them are such beautiful, they're awesome. But the cars themselves are just nightmares. You can't even own them as a third car or a fourth car. They're just, you can't drive them across town. A brand new, whatever, if you got a warranty, that's fine. But I'm talking about the kind of cars I fool with, $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 hoopties. And a Jaguar is the ultimate hoopty because it will just continue to break your heart. They're awful. So that would be my number one sort of overall turkey is any Jaguar. I'm sorry, they're beautiful, but they're junk. And then I've had 2 other cars that I would call just engineered turkeys. These are the ones I'm talking about where there's just a fatal flaw that ruins an otherwise wonderful car. So the first one I had was a 98 740IL, the extended E38 4-door BMW. Beautiful car, maybe one of the most beautiful sedans ever designed. And really, when it's running, fantastic. I love the car. But in that era, the V8s from BMW, I think the 540 had them, the 740, had this lining in the cylinder that was Nicosol or whatever the heck Nicosol is. It's some kind of cheap aluminum, I guess. They're trying to save a buck of all the ways to save a lousy buck. And so the cylinder walls would just disintegrate. And you'd get this V8 engine that was wonderful, but it would slowly dissolve into nothingness and be worthless. So I had that car and it had that issue, and it's like so frustrating because it's just a bad engineering design. Why did they do that? It's almost like they engineered obsolescence. So the Nicosol engine in the BMW and the stupid LED displays on the BMW 7 Series, the E38s, probably some others, the 540 as well. E39 was that 5 Series back then. The pixel in the displays would just, some of them would go out. And they knew this was an issue. There was actually kind of a silent recall that some of the message boards back then helped out with. If you contacted the right person at BMW with the right email, they'd sort of take care of it for you. And I did get it done, but it was so annoying just to have something like that that's just an engineering mistake, just a flaw. And no recall. It's even worse. Like, if there's a mistake and all these airbag recalls, I get it. At least they're recalling it and doing something about it. But to have it, and then you just have to sort of deal with these issues and, oh, sorry, we designed an engine that is made out of tinfoil, really frustrating. So the E38 BMW would be my number 2 engineering turkey. I did later on have a 750 IL with the 12-cylinder. We all know I love 12 cylinders, right? And that was a much better car. The 750 is the one to get if you're going to get an E38. They're beautiful, bigger engine, a little bit nicer leather, very nice cars. So that was great. And then my number 1 turkey for all time has to be the 2010 Range Rover 5.0 Supercharged that I had. There were so many engineering flaws in that truck that it was just a nightmare to fix. If you didn't have all the equipment I have, the lift and the special tools and the computers, the diagnostic equipment I have, that truck was so frustrating because all of it was fixable. The basic vehicle itself was fantastic. So smooth and so much power. I haven't driven many cars faster than that 2010 Supercharged V8. Car, sedan, otherwise, it's really fast. Would tow great. I could pull the camper with it, but 3 things on it that were just horrible engineering designs. I'll start with the supercharger. There's a 20-cent part inside the supercharger that rattles and it wears out. It's rubber and it mates the supercharger to the timing chain, and it's what drives the supercharger. And it just wears out and rattles and eventually breaks. Then you have no supercharger. And it's so ridiculous that they tried to make this part cheap around this $100,000 truck. Why skimp right there? It had to know it was going to break. So the supercharger would just rattle, and I had to take it all apart. I did it all at the same time with my other issue. But it was a nightmare to fix one little 20-cent bushing, more or less, is what it was. So that was very frustrating. But the worst thing about those engines, and everyone that would even think about buying one knows this, from 2010 to 2012, the 5-liter, I guess it was Jaguar at that point, engine, they decided to use these stupid plastic timing chain guides. And you can see a picture where I tore the engine apart and all the parts that were left over when I was doing it. Ridiculous. And so these timing chain guides would rattle and wear out because they're plastic, of course. It wasn't the chains themselves. The chains were fine. But the guides would wear out. And heaven forbid if those guides completely wore out and you jumped a tooth, of course it's an interference engine and kaboom, valves and pistons and you're eating engine. So I had to replace that as well because mine started rattling. You could hear it, and I actually got a check engine light for mistiming, but it didn't jump a chain, thank goodness. Jump a tooth. But, tear the entire engine apart to fix these little, I don't know, $20, $50 timing chain guides that were made of plastic. It's so annoying when these companies do this. They make these beautiful engines and then they just dwindle apart into nothing. And then the third issue with the Rovers is the air compressor for the suspension. They actually replaced it later on with a better version because the first version was so terrible that, the shocks are fine in those. They actually don't spring leaks or anything, but the compressor itself, 1-2 years of use out of it, and it's $1,000, and heaven forbid if you have to pay Rover to put it in for you. So those 3 things make an otherwise fantastic vehicle just a complete turkey. So those are my turkeys that I've owned. I've had a lot of cars that require a lot of maintenance. I don't mind that. All the Mercedes are just maintenance hogs. But when they're just misengineered, it's just totally annoying. And I throw any Jaguar, the complete thing is misengineered because there's so many issues with those. So tell me what you think. What cars have you had, I wonder, that you would add to that list? Put it in the comments below. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. We'll have a lot more content soon. I'm waiting on parts for the SL600 again. There's a couple little tiny power steering hoses that hook up to that pump I removed. I have that video ready to go. I'm just waiting for those pieces to come in so I can replace those hoses as well, put it all back together, and we'll start it up. So look for an update after the holidays, after Thanksgiving, on the SL600. and have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you.